Dismissal rarely announces itself. For intelligent people, it doesn't come as criticism or open disagreement. There's no dramatic clash, no public rejection. Instead, it unfolds in ways that are easy to miss, understated, indirect, almost courteous. You're present, but peripheral. Your input is acknowledged, but not explored. You raise a deeper point, and the energy in the room subtly redirects. No one argues with you. They simply move around you. It isn't conflict. It's quiet repositioning. Over time, you begin to notice something strange. The louder voices move to the center. The confident ones take the lead. The agreeable ones rise smoothly through the ranks. Meanwhile, the person who asks careful questions drifts outward. History offers a powerful example: Nikola Tesla. Tesla wasn't obscure because he lacked brilliance. He envisioned wireless communication, renewable energy transmission, even early forms of radio, long before they became reality. But while others mastered persuasion and profit, Tesla focused on precision and possibility. He wasn't sidelined through public humiliation. He was gradually edged out by louder, more commercially minded figures like Thomas Edison. Investors lost interest. Backers withdrew. Attention shifted. Tesla didn't explode out of society. He faded to its margins. And that's often how it happens. Intelligent people rarely fail because they are wrong. They are sidelined because they disrupt momentum. They slow the room down. They introduce nuance where others want certainty. Society prefers velocity. It rewards clarity that feels simple. It elevates those who move quickly and confidently, even when depth is sacrificed. So the intelligent mind doesn't get attacked. It gets outpaced and slowly, almost imperceptibly, pushed toward the edge. Intelligence doesn't threaten people the way power or wealth does. When someone walks into a room visibly strong, we admire them. When someone is wealthy, we measure success in numbers. When someone is charismatic, we feel entertained. But when someone is deeply intelligent, something different happens. Because intelligence doesn't just exist, it reveals. A truly intelligent person asks questions others avoid. They notice contradictions. They connect patterns that expose comfortable illusions. And that's where the tension begins. Psychologists call this an ego threat. When someone demonstrates a higher level of understanding, it doesn't just showcase their ability, it forces everyone else to confront their limitations. And the brain does not enjoy that. Studies in social psychology show that when people feel intellectually outmatched, areas associated with threat detection become more active. The reaction is subtle but real. Defensiveness, dismissal, distancing. It's easier to downplay the intelligent person than to reassess your own thinking. That's why the response isn't usually admiration. It's labels. Overthinking, arrogant, too intense, complicated. Notice something, none of these attack the argument. They attack the person, because debating ideas requires effort. Reducing someone's social standing requires much less. And so intelligence becomes reframed as a flaw. Not because it is one, but because protecting ego often feels safer than expanding awareness. For most of human history, survival depended on one thing: staying inside the tribe. If you were accepted, you lived. If you were rejected, you were exposed to danger, starvation, and isolation. That wiring hasn't disappeared. Today, exile doesn't mean death, but it still means something powerful: loss of belonging. However, intelligence, especially the kind that questions norms, quietly disrupts group harmony. Every group operates on unspoken agreements. What we believe, what we don't question, what we pretend not to notice. An intelligent person often breaks those agreements without realizing it. They ask, why do we do it this way? They challenge assumptions. They introduce nuance into conversations that run on certainty. And suddenly, the emotional temperature changes. Because groups don't just exist to exchange ideas, they exist to maintain cohesion. Psychologists call this group preservation bias. When a member threatens the shared narrative, the group instinctively moves to stabilize itself, not through debate, but through subtle correction. The intelligent person becomes too analytical, too serious, not a team player. It's rarely conscious cruelty. It's social immune response. The group senses disruption and pushes the disruptor to the edges, not necessarily because they're wrong, but because they make things less comfortable. Belonging often matters more than truth. And when forced to choose, most people will protect the tribe, even if it means sidelining the sharpest mind in the room. Here's something uncomfortable. Intelligence doesn't just introduce new ideas, it introduces comparison. And comparison is dangerous. When someone displays physical strength, we see it. When someone displays wealth, we measure it externally. But intelligence is different. It operates in the same space where we build our identity, our beliefs, our opinions, our understanding of how the world works. So when an intelligent person questions an idea, it rarely feels like they're questioning the idea. It feels like they're questioning us. This is where subtle resistance begins. Psychologists describe something called ego-protective cognition, the tendency to reject information that threatens our self-image. If I see myself as informed, competent, capable, and someone exposes a flaw in my reasoning, my brain doesn't calmly evaluate the new evidence. It defends, not because I'm irrational, but because identity is tied to survival in the social brain. The intelligent person may speak calmly, logically, without arrogance, but their very presence can activate insecurity in others. And insecurity doesn't like to sit quietly. It searches for relief. Sometimes that relief comes through dismissal. They're overthinking it. They just like to sound smart. They're not practical. Notice what happens here. The conversation shifts from the idea to the person. Once intelligence is framed as arrogance or impracticality, the group no longer has to wrestle with the uncomfortable idea itself. The threat dissolves, the hierarchy stabilizes, and the intelligent individual slowly finds themselves speaking less. Not because they lack confidence, but because they sense the invisible friction. Depth forces reflection. Reflection forces discomfort, and discomfort triggers defense. In a world that values emotional ease over intellectual challenge, the person who sees too clearly often becomes the easiest target for quiet exclusion. In 1610, Galileo Galilei pointed a telescope at the sky and quietly stepped outside the boundaries of his time. What he saw was simple: moons orbiting Jupiter, phases of Venus, evidence that Earth was not the center of the universe. Today, this sounds obvious. Back then, it was destabilizing. The dominant worldview, supported by religious authority and centuries of tradition, placed humanity at the center of creation. Galileo's observations didn't just challenge astronomy. They challenged identity, hierarchy, and power. At first, he wasn't attacked outright. He was warned, advised to be careful, encouraged to frame his discoveries as theoretical. But truth, once seen clearly, resists shrinking. Galileo continued speaking, and that's when a shift happened. He wasn't debated. He was reframed, labeled disobedient, accused of heresy, portrayed as dangerous. Eventually, he was placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. Here's the psychological pattern. When intelligence exposes cracks in a system, the system doesn't calmly adjust. It protects itself, not always through violence, but through containment. Galileo wasn't executed. He was sidelined, isolated, restricted, removed from influence. And this is how society often deals with those who see too early. If your insight threatens stability, you're not always attacked directly. You're minimized, discredited, politely pushed to the margins. Because being wrong is uncomfortable, but being wrong publicly, after centuries of certainty, is unbearable. Intelligent people often suffer, not because they lack evidence, but because their clarity arrives before collective readiness. And history shows us something quietly tragic. The world rarely resists truth forever. It just resists it long enough to isolate the one who first speaks it. Here's the paradox no one talks about. In social environments, clarity often loses to confidence. Research consistently shows that people are more persuaded by certainty than by nuance. A person who speaks in bold, simplified statements appears more competent than someone who carefully weighs multiple perspectives. Intelligent people tend to qualify their claims. They say, "It depends." They acknowledge complexity. They admit uncertainty. But socially, that restraint can be misread as weakness. Meanwhile, the loudest voice in the room, even if less informed, often commands attention simply by projecting conviction. This creates what psychologists call the confidence heuristic. We mistake certainty for expertise. And intelligent individuals, aware of variables and unknowns, rarely speak with absolute certainty. So they get talked over, outperformed in meetings, overlooked in leadership contests, not because they lack insight, but because they refuse to oversimplify reality. Add to this the modern attention economy. Short statements spread faster than layered arguments. Emotion spreads faster than analysis. Depth requires patience. Popularity rewards immediacy. And in a culture that equates visibility with value, the thoughtful mind often moves quietly, while louder, simpler narratives dominate the stage. There's a subtle, invisible force at play when intelligent people enter social spaces, something psychologists call the mirror effect. It's not about arrogance or condescension. It's about reflection. When someone thinks deeply, questions assumptions, or notices patterns others overlook, they unintentionally hold up a mirror to those around them. That mirror doesn't show physical appearance or wealth. It shows limitations, gaps in understanding, blind spots in reasoning, contradictions in beliefs. For many, that reflection is uncomfortable. Humans are wired to protect self-esteem and social status. When someone challenges the way we see the world, even gently, it can feel like a threat. The intelligent person hasn't attacked. They've simply revealed the gap between potential understanding and current perception. History is full of examples. Galileo wasn't punished for arrogance. He was punished because his discoveries reflected the limitations of centuries of accepted knowledge. Socrates didn't insult the Athenian elite. He asked questions that exposed their inconsistencies. Tesla didn't belittle his peers. He proposed visions they weren't ready to imagine. And Nietzsche didn't score morality for fun. He pointed out the gaps and contradictions in commonly accepted values. The mirror effect explains why intelligent individuals are quietly sidelined. It's not personal, it's psychological. People instinctively resist the reminder that they might not know as much as they think. This resistance can manifest subtly, ignoring ideas, shifting conversations, or socially excluding the thinker. Over time, the intelligent person often retreats, not out of choice, but because the world around them is structured to protect comfort over insight. Understanding the mirror effect is liberating. It reframes rejection not as failure, but as evidence that depth is being recognized, even if it's too much for others to handle. If the world is wired to resist intelligence, how can deep thinkers survive and even thrive without compromising our insight? History offers guidance if we know where to look. Choose your battles wisely. Not every conversation requires your deepest insight. Socrates didn't challenge every citizen he met. He focused on those willing to think critically. Similarly, modern thinkers benefit from saving their energy for audiences capable of engaging with nuance. Seek like-minded minds. Isolation doesn't have to mean loneliness. Galileo found support among fellow astronomers. Tesla corresponded with scientists who shared his vision. Today, this can mean intellectual communities, online forums, or carefully chosen friends who value depth over comfort. Adapt your communication. Complexity doesn't have to be exclusionary. Einstein famously said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Packaging ideas in a way that invites curiosity rather than threatens can reduce resistance and foster connection. Embrace solitude as strength. Schopenhauer argued that deep thinkers should use solitude to develop creativity, insight, and clarity, not as punishment. Quiet reflection allows intelligent individuals to recharge and prepare for interactions where their ideas will be valued. Accept society's limits without self-rejection. Feeling sidelined is often a reflection of others' discomfort, not your inadequacy. Tesla, Socrates, and Nietzsche were all marginalized in their time, yet their contributions endure because they persisted despite resistance. By combining discernment, community, effective communication, and self-awareness, intelligent people can navigate a world resistant to depth while maintaining both their sanity and their impact. So, if you've ever felt out of place for thinking deeply, you're not alone. History proves it. From Socrates to Tesla, the world often sidelines brilliance, but it's the same minds that change everything. If this hit home, smash that like button, subscribe, and comment below. I want to hear your story. Keep questioning, keep thinking deeply, and I'll see you in the next video.